Hey there, Resident Atheist. This is a video in response to your video and the conversation that we were having. I'm going to start off by defining a few words. Atheist. A, without, theist, God. Given the vagueness of this definition, there have been a few definitions that have been popping around in dictionaries that some people take to be true and others take to be false. The two definitions that are most popular, and I think that they're most popular because they seem to be the most rational understanding of without God, are one who lacks belief in the existence of a God, or two, one who believes that a deity or God does not exist. So obviously the first one will be coming from the idea that without God means without belief in God. So one who lacks belief in God is without God. The second comes from the idea that without God means that, we are without God. The universe is without God. So it's the belief that we are without God. There is no God. The second definition I'd like to go over is the word belief. Belief. There are different definitions. The definition I'm going to be going by is the conviction of truth. Okay. Agnostic. This is the next third definition I want to go over. Without knowledge. Without gnostic. Knowledge. The two definitions I found that are most popular are a person who holds the view that any ultimate reality as God is unknown and probably unknowable. This is the first definition I see most popular, and the second most popular definition I see is a person who is unwilling to commit to an opinion about something. Alright. The last definition I'd like to go over is the word reject. To refuse to hear, receive, or admit. Okay. Now I'm going to get on with the problems I had with the video that you uploaded. The first problem. You said atheism and agnostic both based on knowledge, while theist is based on faith. I'm not sure what this means or what you're trying to say. Are you suggesting that one comes to be an atheist or agnostic with knowledge rather than faith? That theists lack knowledge and base their beliefs on faith? This is nothing more seems not like to me like nothing more than a stereotype. Many atheists, given the definition one that lacks belief in God, let's not go into the whole debate as to which one's right. Let's just assume that one, which seems to be the one you're assuming. Lack belief in God. Many are atheists either know they're atheists and have no knowledge to back it up, or don't know they're atheists at all and still contain no knowledge. You don't need to have knowledge to be an atheist. You can be completely lacking knowledge and be an atheist given the definition, the lacking of belief in God, in a God. Many theists have been agnostic or atheists and become theists through the discovery of certain knowledge. So it's completely a stereotype to say that one belief is one that comes found with knowledge and one is one that comes found with faith. The second problem I had was your definition of atheism in your video. Quote unquote, someone who rejects the theist claim 100%. What is this theist claim? I don't think you understand what theist means. It's a belief, and beliefs don't necessarily have to have a claim. For instance, I could believe that God exists and never claim that God exists. But I'm assuming that you mean theist claim as in the claim that God exists. So someone who rejects the idea that God exists 100% is more what sounds like your definition is trying to get about to. The problem I have with this definition is reject. The word reject, as I stated above, it means to refuse to hear, receive, or admit. Okay, now someone could believe that a God exists, right? Internally, they could believe that a God exists and still reject it. They can refuse to admit that God exists. So internally, they subconsciously or something, they could really believe that God exists, but still reject it in the sense that they don't want to admit it, right? So for instance, someone could be a theist, right? And someone could be an atheist and reject it. Okay, so like someone can know that like God doesn't exist, or they can believe that God doesn't exist really, but they don't want to admit it, right? They just don't want to admit that God doesn't exist because they need it for some reason, so they reject it. Atheism. What do you mean by 100%? I don't understand this at all. I don't understand how you could lack belief in God 10%. That doesn't make any sense. Either you believe that a God exists or you lack belief that a God exists. You can't, 10% believe God exists, 90% lack belief that God exists. It makes no sense. The last problem I had with your video is you said, I know man created God. That's a really big claim. I would like to hear reasons for this claim that you hold, this belief that you hold that man created God. Secondly, I think that you're creating a non sequitur here. First of all, did man create God? Right? Did man create omnipotent, omnipowerful, necessary entity God? I don't think you mean that. I think what you really mean is that man created the idea of God, right? But this doesn't necessarily mean that that God actually exists or not. So, for instance, man created the idea of gravity, but that does not mean that gravity, the law of gravity, does not exist before or after the man created it. It's a non sequitur to state that premise, man created God, therefore, conclusion, God does not exist. Simply does not follow from that. The last thing I've had a problem was with your talking about science. You said that science cannot be used to support theism. I think this is very wrong. In many cases in the past, science has been shown to support theism. In arguments such as the teleological argument and the Kalam-cosmological argument, they're the most popular ones now. And they use science to try to show that there's evidence that God exists. The problems I had with our conversation, was one real problem I had. And that was when you started saying things like, you can't be aware of the truth, and believe something at the same time. The problem I have with this is, that's not true at all. And it's somewhat similar to when you said that agnostics and atheists in your video are mutually exclusive. This isn't true either. So, first let me start off with agnostic versus atheism being mutually exclusive, okay? The problem with this is that agnostics, a person who is unwilling to commit to an opinion about something, right, could be an atheist, someone who lacks belief in God. You could be unwilling to believe that God exists, and therefore lack belief in God. So someone could be an atheist and an agnostic at the same time, given the definitions are correct, of course. Also, someone could be an agnostic and be a theist. Someone could say, I don't know that, I don't have knowledge, or I don't know, but I still believe that there is a God. Now, that wouldn't be a rational belief, obviously, right? But that could still be a belief. The mutually exclusive claim about believing and knowing, I don't see this to be true at all. Let me go back over the definition of belief. The conviction of truth, so being convinced that something is true. Now, let's say I make the claim that I know that something cannot be and not be at the same time. So, or let me put it this way. I know that someone cannot be a man and a woman at the same time. Or someone cannot be a bachelor and married at the same time. Now, I can believe that someone cannot be married and a bachelor at the same time, meaning that I'm convinced that someone cannot be a bachelor and married at the same time, and still know that someone cannot be married and a bachelor at the same time. When you say you believe something, it does not always mean that there is a probability that your belief is wrong. Okay? So, that is the problems I had with our conversation and the video that you uploaded. Very much appreciated if you were to make a video response to this video, but if you don't want to do that, maybe we can just have a nice conversation in the comment section. Really appreciate it if we left our biases and assumptions about other people and their beliefs and the way that they act out of it. Your claims about, theism being so strong that it causes people to run planes into buildings was just uncalled for, and just not all theists do that. For instance, there are atheists that have done absolutely disgusting things. Stalin. But that doesn't mean all atheists do that, or that atheism is bad or evil. But I really don't want to get into a debate about that. Sorry. Let's not go into that. Let's just stick with what we talked about earlier. Maybe we can have a video discussion about the other things in a later time. So let's just focus on this. I appreciate your time. Thank you for watching the video, and bye-bye.